we welcome Dr. Paris Delatraz. Today's session is going to be in English. Dr. Paris will lead you in today's session. The session is 1 hour. The first part is going to be in Dr. Paris' presentation, and we'll leave all questions till the end. So please keep your questions in the chat box till the end, and we'll answer them at the end. If you have any Russian questions as well, leave them at the end, and we'll have them from my colleague Anastasia, who will help translate for Dr. Paris to answer your questions. So without any further delay, Dr. Paris, welcome on board. The team can hear us all clearly, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Okay, perfect. Let's begin. All right, today we're going to talk about technology leadership in times of disruption. So, what does this mean? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about what disruption actually means today. And then we're going to get into what does a leader need to have to be able to lead in times like this. So I think the good way to start here would be, what is innovation? Because a lot of people actually believe that innovation is primarily creativity. And that's not the case. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci, who several hundred years ago, he had been developing pictures of, where he had been drawing pictures of helicopters on napkins in those days and his sketches. And, was that creativity or was that innovation? There was no innovation there because it was just, creativity way ahead of its time. So the important message here is that innovation is about impact. It's not necessarily about creativity. Okay, now that's a very important difference, because a lot of people always get almost like paralysis by analysis by sitting in a corner thinking, oh my God, how can I come up with a new idea? You don't need a new idea. You need a better idea. So you can actually take an idea that already exists and make it better. And believe it or not, 90%, and we'll talk about this later again, 90% of all innovation today is adapting an idea that already exists. Or, maybe a lot of people don't like to hear it this way, but it's actually copying an idea and making it better. And Airbnb is a copy of another idea, making it better. Uber is a copy of another idea, making it better. Most creativity today, most innovation today is based on that. So there's no need to be creative here. It's about being innovative, and innovation is about impact. It's about going out there and making something better. So, for example, look at this. This was a doctor in Texas that he thought that this machine was pretty scary, and every time kids went in there, they were in a panic. So he wrote to GE and Siemens and said, "Can you guys make this more innovative? Can you, make it friendlier for kids? Can you innovate in that respect?" And they wrote back to him and said, "This is a $20 million machine. We really can't make this more innovative. And what is it? I mean, why is this more innovative? This is what it is." So the doctor decided, okay, I'll have to do something on my own. So he painted the machine, making it look like a rocket ship. Kids loved it. So is this innovation? Yes, it is. Didn't take much, wasn't very expensive, but it is innovation because it had impact. For the kids, this was totally innovative. All of a sudden now they weren't scared about going in there. The GoPro story, that's another amazing story of innovation today. You take GoPro, how do two guys in California actually compete with people like Panasonic and Sony? If someone had come to you and said, we are going to develop a new camcorder, what would you have said? Crazy. Especially, two guys that had no budget, $25,000 in their garage. So how do they do it? Very simply. They ask themselves, does anybody have a relationship to a Sony or a Panasonic camcorder? And the answer is no. Nobody had a relationship with their camcorder. So they said, we're going to innovate. We're going to create a camcorder that people have a relationship with. So what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to make it uglier than sin. I mean, look at this thing. Have you ever seen anything that ugly in your life as a camcorder? But you know, ugly is cool for a lot of people. So they said, let's make something really ugly. Let's make it wide angle lens so it's like totally different. And then let's do something that, nobody else has done in this space. Let's connect it to the internet. Let's get, let's hire a few thousand extreme sports people to use the thing and to actually, upload their videos. And then let's create a really cool brand. I mean, look at this, GoPro, be a hero. Can you imagine Sony or Panasonic with a title called Be a Hero? No way. So sure enough, what happened? Well, last year, 9 million people bought a GoPro. I have a GoPro. Do I look like a extreme sports guy? No. I'll bet some of you here have GoPros as well. 9 million people bought GoPros. I have a relationship with my GoPro. For the first time in my life, I've had camcorders all my life. Some were Panasonic, some were JVC, some were Sony. Did I ever have a relationship with any of them? No, no attachment. Now, for the first time, I have a relationship with my GoPro. I buy every accessory that comes out. So people cracked it. So what caused the disruption here? Was it a business model or a brand strategy? It was a brand strategy. It wasn't a new business model. They were still selling the machine. It was a brand strategy. The brand strategy was based on building a relationship with people. And that's what they decided to do. They decided to build a relationship. And when you have a relationship with a brand, it's amazing. They can charge you whatever they want and you're loyal to them. I have a relationship with my iPhone. Do you think I would trade in my iPhone for a Samsung with twice the functionality? No, no way. So having a brand strategy is critical in this business of innovation. And see, the beauty, and this is where these startups and anybody like yourselves that might be doing something from scratch is interesting, is that for a startup, it is so easy to develop a brand strategy because they don't have any baggage. A big company has tremendous amount of baggage. To try to get a big company reinvent themselves so that people have a relationship with their brand, very difficult. Here are some examples of business models that are disrupting many industries. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with these. So how has innovation developed over the years? Well, if you remember, probably about 20 years ago, innovation was about product innovation. And people built a better product. That's how people innovated. Then it became process innovation. Process innovation was really about cutting costs. And then over the last few years, it's been business model innovation. Business model innovation is where business models have completely changed the rules many times. And now we're getting into disruptive innovation, where all of a sudden, your competition is not a traditional competitor with a new business model. It's a totally, completely new competitor that is only competing with you because he's going after your clients. And many times his whole reason for being able to compete with you is because he does have a relationship with your clients and you don't. So what are the forces that are making brand engagement easier today? Well, look at these, things like social media, cloud computing, video, mobility, big data, Internet of Things, location-based services. All these things make it so easy for people to develop relationships because they create engagement. So if you look at what GoPro did, they used social media, they used location, they used video, they used all these things that can create engagement. So let's look at this, for example. Which one of these two brands do you think has more loyal customers? Well, let me tell you. I was in Korea a few months ago, and I was with an executive from Samsung. And he looked at my iPhone and he said, would you be willing to trade in your iPhone for a Samsung that had twice the functionality and half the price? I said, no, I have a relationship with my iPhone. And he said, yeah, I figured that. And he asked me, so what kind of a TV do you have at home? And I said, well, I have a beautiful 60-inch, flat screen. And he said, what brand is it? And I said, it's a Samsung. And he said, wow, and what TV did you have, 15 years ago? I said, I had a beautiful Sony. And he said, well, what TV do you think you're going to have 10 years from now? And I said, I don't know. And he said, I said, but I think it's, hopefully going to be the best TV out there. And he said, well, do you think it's going to be a Samsung? And I said, I don't know, and I really don't care. And he said, yeah, that's exactly the problem that we have here at Samsung. It's that we're a product company. We're not a brand company. People don't have a relationship with Samsung. They buy us because we're the best product in town. But the problem is, as soon as somebody else shows up that has a better product at a better price, if they don't have a relationship with you, they go away. So this is the trick, people. You see, those of us that have Macintoshes or Macs and iPhones, we don't really care about whether this is the most advanced phone there is out there. We're happy. We have a relationship with this Mac and a relationship with this phone. And we're just willing to wait for Apple to catch up. When we were told a few years ago that Apple was getting the highest margin in the industry with their iPhones, did we care? Did we think, oh, greedy, Steve Jobs? No, we didn't care because we have a relationship. And, so this is like such an incredible position to be in if you're a company, to have customers that have a relationship with you because you can get away with murder. You can charge them anything you want and they stay there. So this is the future of innovation. It's having relationships with your customers. So, what do companies embark on today? Well, the different types of strategies are the ones I've just been talking about. You can have a brand strategy, which is a relationship strategy. You can have a product strategy, which is like the one Samsung has had up until now. You can have a technology strategy, like some people who just have a great technology. And you can have limited or controlled distribution, which is what essentially people like Rolls-Royce have or Porsche. But there are a lot of companies that have moved up this value chain. For example, Google. Google started as a technology company. They had the best browser. Then they become a product company. They've got a bunch of products out there now. And ideally, what Google would like is for you to have a relationship with Google and actually use all their products. But how do you develop a brand model? Well, it's about emotions. Look at your watch for a minute now. Did you spend more than $30 on it? I did. So there's my watch. Was it an emotional decision? Sure it was. Any watch that you buy for over 20 or $30 is an emotional decision. I mean, if you think about it, you can buy the best Chinese watch, quartz, battery operated, whatever. It'll give you the best time in the world. Why do you need to spend more than $30 on a watch? Well, let me tell you. See, when you were buying a watch 30 years ago and you were buying a Swiss watch, you were buying best product. Today, when you buy a Swiss watch, you're not buying the best product. Watches are a commodity in terms of the timekeeping. On the contrary, you get better time with one of these quartz Chinese watches. I mean, this watch that I have, this is an expensive watch. It is 5 minutes late every month. You think I care? Every month, I'm sitting there and I'm, going into the shower and changing the time, and I don't care because it's, I have a relationship with this watch. I don't think there's a parallel translation into Russian, Karen. Sorry about that. I don't know if anybody has the answer to that. Um, so getting back to this point, you see, I've got a relationship with my watch. And if I want to know the exact time, I probably look at my iPhone. I don't look at my watch for the exact time. So this is it. As I said, 30 years ago, you would buy a Swiss watch because it was the best product. Today, you're buying an experience. What is it? For some people, it's status. For other people, it's like exclusivity, genuineness, difference, uniqueness. People are looking for meaning more than ever before as consumers. And that's why, luxury is such a big thing now, because luxury is what sparks emotions. It conveys passion. There's a terrific story behind every luxury brand. In the past, Many companies spoke more about their technology than about emotions. But fashion has changed all that. So yes, it's all about emotions. So what is corporate innovation today? Um, yeah, there probably is. I don't have the breakdown on me, Mikhail. So getting back to corporate innovation, what are we talking about here when we talk about corporate innovation? Well, you got four types of innovation. You got marketing innovation, better ways to market products. Incremental innovation, that's where you improve the product incrementally. Discontinuous innovation, that's where you change the business models. And disruptive innovation, which is where you completely change the rules. If you look at what happened in the hotel sector with Airbnb, I mean, this was not somebody with a new business model. This was like changing the rules dramatically. I mean, these people forget about, a new business model for hotels with rooms in them. These people went out there and they completely shattered the hospitality industry. 25% today of rooms in Paris, France are through Airbnb. And when Airbnb started, people were thinking, oh, this is just going to be for cheap hotels, the ones that people want to stay in an apartment. Today, about a third of Airbnb rooms in Paris are five-star apartments. So they're competing with five-star hotels. This is a major disruption for these guys. These are the types of business models that are disrupting across many industries today. We talked a little bit about these before: the peer-to-peer, the subscription, the revenue sharing, the open source, freemium experience selling, like Starbucks, Espresso. I mean, look at Espresso. They completely have changed the way you buy coffee. And Starbucks has changed the way you buy coffee outside. Some examples of business model families and how some of them have been disrupted over the last few years. So, what is the role of big data in innovation? Because a lot of people talk about big data, but do they really know what it is? And do they really know how it can be used? So, let's talk first about Gillette. I don't know how many men out there here use Gillette, but I used the Gillette this morning and it had 7 blades on it. Do I need 7 blades? Probably not. I don't know if you remember the year 2000 when the first Gillette came out, 3 blades, the Mac 3. So innovation for Gillette means more blades. Imagine that. They're predicting that by the year 2100, a razor from Gillette will have 14 blades. Do we need 14 blades? No. But, we'll probably be sold on the idea that you need 14 blades in order to have a better shave. And that's the way that Gillette innovates. They add blades. Starbucks, for example. Starbucks took a 50-cent cup of coffee and turned it into a $3 cup of coffee. Now, what did they sell to get you to pay $3? They sold the experience, a bunch of intangibles. Where does Starbucks want to go? Well, this is an interesting concept. It's the concept of the consumer surplus. Essentially, what Starbucks wants to know is how many of us would be willing to spend more on the products that we buy today. So they have figured out that most people who are really committed to Starbucks are willing to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. Take myself. I'm in Japan right now. This morning I walked out of my hotel room. I went downstairs and I said to the guy in the breakfast area, I said, listen, I'm not interested in your $25 buffet because I'm not a breakfast person. All I want is a cappuccino and a croissant. And he looked at me and said, oh, I'm sorry. We cannot sell you a croissant unless you buy the buffet. I'm like, what? Can you sell me a cappuccino? Oh, well, yes, the cappuccino is not included in the buffet. The cappuccino will be $7, but if you want a croissant, you're going to have to pay the $25 buffet. I said, listen, I only want a croissant and a cappuccino. Why can't I have a croissant a la carte? I'm sorry, it's only buffet. So I said, well, tell me where the next Starbucks is. And that's essentially what I did. I walked over to the Starbucks and had my croissant. and the cappuccino for about the video's not working well or the connection's not working well. So I had my croissant, my cappuccino, and you know what Starbucks has figured out is that if push came to shove, I'd be willing to pay $5 for that cappuccino. Today they're selling it for $3. So I'm leaving money on the table for them, which I'm taking home. I'm saving that money. But if they charged me $5 for that cappuccino, I'd probably pay for it. So that is the concept of the consumer surplus, okay, which is the money that I'm saving today. For Starbucks, their ultimate goal is to get everybody's consumer surplus. So they don't know it, but they want to know how much I'd be willing to pay. And they think they're going to find that out. And when they do, they're going to increasingly offer me more, segmentation, more different options at Starbucks so they can grab those $5 from me, which is the concept of the consumer surplus. And companies try to extract from us as much of our consumer surplus as they can, because the total of all of our consumer surpluses is what we save. Okay, and it's different for everybody. So, in the past, what did you have to do in order to find out what someone's consumer surplus was? You had to get to know that person really well. Well, today with big data, you don't have to. See, big data can figure out what my interests are like. With big data, if you analyze and interpret the big data on me, you can find out that I'm willing to pay more for my coffee. And that's what innovation today is in basic industries. It's how you extract more consumer surplus from your clients. And one way of doing that is through the analysis of big data. Okay, let's take, for example, the Target case. I don't know if you're familiar with this case. It happened in the United States a few years ago. Target's been capturing big data on millions of people that have been shopping there. And they took one of their statisticians, Andrew Poll, and he actually developed an algorithm that projected with 87% accuracy whether someone was pregnant. Imagine that. Just by looking at their buying behavior on 25 products. So what happened? They started sending people coupons on their baby products to everybody they thought was pregnant. And, if you're at home and you're pregnant and you never buy baby products at Target and you buy other things, all of a sudden now you're starting to get coupons at home. So you're feeling good about this. Wow, Target cares for me. How did they know I was pregnant? They're not, you're not thinking that they actually figured this out by looking at how you bought 25 different products, which is what they did. So they start to build a relationship with you by sending you the coupons. So this is the situation. And what happened was they started sending so many of these, coupons to different people that eventually they sent it to a father of a teenage girl. He got really upset. So he said, listen, what are you trying to do? Get my daughter pregnant? Well, the reality was that she was pregnant. And while the father first complained, he later apologized to Target. Amazing. Is this moral? Who knows? Is it legal? It's legal, all right. So why is this important here? The use of big data to develop relationships. Because it allows people to compete where they never competed before. Let me give you an example. In Boston, Massachusetts, there is a specialty store that sells baby products. They've been around for 3 generations. People have traditionally bought there. It's a small company, 3 stores in the Washington area, in the Boston area. All of a sudden, a lot of the people that were buying at Target some of their products, but continued to buy their baby products at this little chain of this traditional store, all of a sudden now they were being targeted by Target when they were pregnant, long before the baby product store chain knew about this. So Target was able to develop relationships with a demographic that had never shopped at Target before for baby products. And they stopped going to the traditional baby product franchise. So all of a sudden, the small companies feels the pain of how these people are disrupting them. Not a traditional competitor, but someone that is disrupting them purely because they have access to their clients. So this is where big data is coming in. And you see in the past, you had to get information on people one by one to figure this stuff out. Now you can actually collect it massively and analyze it in a very big way. Here's some of the business models that are using big data. And if you look at these, probably the most important for you as startups is probably number one and number five. Number one is knowing your customer better. Number five is improving the customer experience. Target got into knowing your customer. And once you know your customer, you can improve the experience. But there's a whole bunch of other things that you can see there you can use big data for. But one and five are probably the most important in terms of startups. Now, ultimately, what are these 8 business models good for that use big data? Number one is to save money, efficiency. Number two is to get more of your client's wallet or their total spend. And finally, it's to align your brand to the client so that you can build customer relationships. And that's the ultimate value that you can build by using big data, which is what these people were doing at Target. They were actually building relationships. Now, nothing is free in the digital age. And you might think, well, Google, they give us all these free goodies like internet and then Gmail accounts and internet accounts. Well, the reality is that nothing is free, people. And Google is actually analyzing our emails every day. You see, email is free, right? Well, not exactly. You sign something off that allows them to keep all that information. And ultimately, what Google is trying to do, they want to know what you want before you know it. Imagine how well they need to know you. And already they're starting to predict things. So they want to be able to tell you, Paris, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Shouldn't you have lunch yet? By the way, between you and the next, Kentucky Fried Chicken, which I know is where you love to eat, it's only a mile away. And they're running a special on 3 drumsticks and 2 thighs for $2.20, whatever. So this is the kind of sort of like, engagement that brands are going to start to have by using big data. They're going to be able to predict what you're doing and what you should be doing based on your past. You know, Data today is being captured primarily in the private sector, unlike in the past. And academic studies mean nothing now. Almost every freebie or every big company is capturing big data on you. And they are actually making you sign off. And whether it's Facebook or WhatsApp, they're keeping this information. Did you know that in 2013, 90% of the world's data had been created in the last 2 years? That's amazing. It just goes to show that ultimately this is exploding, and everybody needs to have a big data strategy, even a small company. What does it mean for consumers? It means that they're going to have less surplus. Ultimately, all these companies will know everything about us, and they will know exactly how to target our wallets in order to get the most from our consumer surplus. And at the end, what does it mean for companies? It means that if you're not collecting data on your customers, someone else either will or is. Now, does it mean necessarily that you're going to be disruptive anytime soon? Probably not, but the likelihood is there. The likelihood is there that just like the hotel industry, if you were Sheraton, you were, afraid of Marriott. Little did you expect that someone would show up with, apartment rentals. And now they're building relationships with their clients. And these people are like there forever. So that's the new focus, people. It's about delivering authentic experiences and outcomes. It's moving from selling products to keeping brand promises. It's the why. It's not what you do or how you do it, like Simon Sinek says. It's why you do what you do. You see, I buy Apple products. I started buying Apple products when Steve Jobs was around. Did any of us think that Steve Jobs was only doing this for the money? No. He inspired millions and he got millions of people to actually believe that it was not about the money. That is inspiration. If it's only about the money, what's the likelihood that you're going to stay? Not very good. Transformation demands focusing on metrics that matter. If you're going to transform the economy, then you need to go out there and spend the money that you need to do in order to get it done. Okay? You have to focus on the things that matter. You have to focus on where people are spending their money. And that's where big data comes in. As I said, customers are seeking outcomes and experiences, while most companies are out there selling products and services. They're out in the old days, and but they don't realize that products are a commodity nowadays. Even a watch, even a Swiss watch, if you have a Cartier, if you have a Bulgari, they're all the same in terms of the product. None of these watches, one is better than the other. They're all going to be 5 minutes late each month, probably. If not 2 minutes late. They're not going to be like a quartz. People that buy these watches are not buying a better product. They're buying an experience. So a lot of people ask me, Paris, you're, always around technology, you're traveling the world. Why don't you have an Apple Watch? Because I'm happy with my watch. Now, at what point are all of us going to be forced to have an Apple Watch? Think about that. Anybody got any ideas? When do you think we're going to be forced to buy an Apple Watch? Well, let me tell you, we're going to be forced to have an Apple Watch when that watch, all right, Lisa's trying to say something. Yeah, Lisa? I think no one's going to be, well, no, I didn't mean force because someone's forcing you. When are you going to force yourself to buy one? And the answer to the question is imagine the day that that watch, probably, Mikhail, yeah, that's close. That's the day that that watch knows more about you than you do. Imagine that. That day's going to come. That's why Google is capturing so much data on Apple as well. At some point, there'll be more data on that watch about you than what you know about yourself. It will tell you when you're hungry. It will tell you, all kinds of things. And that day, when that watch knows more about you than anybody else in the world, you'll be forced to buy it. You'll feel forced to buy it. And that day's going to happen. So if you're a corporate innovator or you're in a big company, you shouldn't be thinking that you're going to be disrupted by traditional competitors. Okay? It's the non-traditional competitors that are somewhere targeting your customers. Anybody that has a lot of customers is going to be targeted. Okay? And they're going to be targeting your customers. If you're a telco, okay, if you're a telephone company, most people don't have a relationship with their telco. Not at all. So, you know, someone's going to disrupt you. Why are the banks in a panic about fintechs? Think about that. How many of you have a relationship with your bank? Very few people. And if you do, it's probably a bad relationship. I gave a talk on disruption in Singapore a few months ago. And I asked everybody, how many of you have a relationship with your bank? There's about 400 people in this event. One person raised their hand. I said, interesting. The next day I spoke at the bank to about a couple hundred staff. And I said, the day before, I only got one person out of 400 that had a relationship with you guys. No wonder you're in a panic about fintechs. See, fintechs are small companies, small startups that are actually developing relationships with their customers. And so, if you're a fintech, this is open country. Anybody will come and become your customer because they hate the banks. Because everybody at a bank is being compensated to screw their client. Everybody, whether it's retail banking, mortgage banking. And don't tell me I was a banker for 20 years. I was an investment banker. And it's the same everywhere. The same everywhere. So, somebody is going to target your customers if you don't have a relationship with them. Believe me. So I think if you're in a big company, just ask yourself, do I have a relationship with my customers? If the answer is no or probably not, you are ripe to being disrupted. As I said earlier, 90% of successful business model innovations today already existed. So they were adapted from something else, and that includes things like Uber, Airbnb, and the like. The reality is that if you don't innovate, you will disappear as a company. So decision making in big companies needs to move from gut and instinct to data-driven decisions. This is the future. Now, I have an exercise for you guys. How many of you are here? There's 44 of you here. It's a good group. I want to know how well you were listening to me. Okay, here's an exercise. Let's see if you guys are awake. Boston Whaler is a company in the United States that makes boats. About 80% of the boats that Boston Whaler makes are made by order. So you're a rich person and you say, I want this type of boat, and they make it to you by order. You have now been hired as head of innovation at Boston Whaler. Company's got $120 million in revenue. It's not a big company. You don't have a big budget. They're saying, okay, you know, Eldar, Lisa, Mikhail, Konstantin, all you guys, you're all heads of innovation. You can go out there and innovate, but you don't have a lot of money. So what would be your best idea in order to innovate for this company? You are the head of innovation. Come up with an idea. Now, I'll give you a hint. Think about the things I've been talking about in this presentation today. The answer is in there. How would you innovate if you were the head of innovation at Boston Whaler? Come on. Who's awake? We've got some ideas. Ships with your name? Interesting. It's not bad. Nope, that's not it. Yeah. History of making it. What do you mean by that? Online constructors of the boat. What do you mean by that, Oleg? Yes, that's good. Online construct configuration of the boat. Yep, that's close. Exclusive club for boat owners. Yeah, that could be good too. Change the way you communicate. Personal contact gives more emotion. Okay. Invite customers to innovation process. Yeah, that could be there too. All right. Let me tell you what they did. Oh, wait, we got a couple people typing here. Let's see. Okay, Jafar, I got it. All right. Eldar, you're about to say something? Yep. Gotcha, Oleg. Eldar. Okay. Yeah, I got that. Reach out to more rich customers. Okay, let me tell you what these people did. Um, and this was amazing. I found out about this by accident. I was in Madrid having dinner with my wife and three other couples. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the dinner, this guy pulls out at the end of the dinner a laptop and he says, I just ordered my Boston Whaler. And his wife is like, oh my God, not again, honey. Don't bore them with this. This is what he does every night, she said. And he pulls out the laptop and he gets on the internet and he shows us this web browser. And in it, in the screen, was his boat. He could watch. It took 3 months to build this boat. He could watch live. They had cameras on the boat. So every day he could see live where the boat was in the production process. And he loved that. The wife was like, every day he comes home, he goes straight to bed and he sits there after dinner watching his boat. So, I just go to sleep, the wife says. This is my competition now. So imagine that. This guy was like a kid engaged watching his boat being built. Now, is this innovation? Think about it. This is like amazing innovation. It builds relationships with your clients. There was another guy at the table, and he was like, oh my God, I need to get one of these boats. So, can you imagine for 3 months, you're watching your boat being built? The expectation. I mean, every day you get up, it's like Christmas. So, I can imagine that when you get the boat, it actually gets worked because expectations are obviously better than the real thing. Which reminds me, I had dinner with the president of Porsche in Madrid, Porsche for Spain and Iberia. And he said to me, it takes 6 months to get delivery of a Porsche. And he said to me, do you know what the happiest moments are in the life of a Porsche owner? Those 6 months. And it's true. Because when you buy it, you feel guilty. It's so much money. And then for 6 months, you're like, oh my God, it's like Christmas every day. I'm getting my Porsche. Then the day you get it, it's like ecstasy. But the next day, it starts to go downhill forever because you scratch it, the value goes down, whatever. So it's those 6 months of waiting for your Porsche that are the happiest moments of your life. Just like this guy, the 3 months watching his boat being built. This is innovation, people. Today, people are looking for meaning in their lives. So you give them meaning through things like this. This is what is innovation today. And you, as head of innovation at this company, if you had come up with that idea, like somebody obviously did there, talk about a killing. Do you think you spend a lot of money on that? No. I mean, see, 30 years ago, if someone said to you, listen to this, 30 years ago, if you were the head of innovation at this company, and then someone said we need to innovate, you would have built a better boat and spent a fortune. Now, this guy who's spent the last 3 months watching his boat being built, do you think he cares if his boat is slower than his competitors? No. Do you think he cares that, it has less sophisticated equipment? No. This guy has a relationship with his boat. He hasn't bought a better product. He has bought a better experience. Everybody understand that? This is what innovation is today. Totally. And that's why anybody can innovate. And even if you're a technology company, this is technology, this boat. Even if you are a technology company, you can innovate like never before. Because even technology has become a commodity. in most instances. So I've spent the last half hour or so talking to you about um, what disruptive innovation means. Actually, the last 45 minutes. Now I'm going to talk to you about what does it take to lead in a space like this? How can you feel comfortable? How can you be one of those people that came up with that idea of watching the boat while it's being built? What does it take to be that creative, to be able to deliver, innovate those types of experiences? Let me tell you about my research. I was an investment banker for 20 years, and then I became an entrepreneur for 8. And then finally, I became an academic, and I got my PhD in 2011. And for 5 years, I did research in a topic called quants, what I called quants. What are these quants? Well, these are people that don't like leaving their professional comfort zones. They struggle with uncertainty and ambiguity. They're usually mathematically minded. They're obsessed with objectivity. They believe that more information means more certainty. They exhibit a fairly closed mind, and they struggle with negotiations and communicating well. These are like nerds, right? Quant types. Knowing that you guys are primarily from Russia and CIS countries, that's exactly what I was going to say, Eldar. I think most of you here today are probably quants. You're probably very good with mathematics, but you probably struggle sometimes having emotional intelligence at work, which is what this study is about. I studied quants in 155 cases in 20 companies. So ask yourself, when you're at work, do you experiment? How open is your mind? A lot of people ask me, are we born this way, like nerdy or quanty? Look at me when I was born. I was born a nerd. I got my bachelor's in mathematics and my master's in computer science. I was a real baby quant. I hated uncertainty when I was born. Do you think we're born this way? Nerdy, hating uncertainty? Look at my sister. She was totally different. She loved uncertainty. She was a party animal since the day she was born. Nothing introverted about her. She was a total extrovert all the time. So do you really think that we are born this way? Well, let me tell you, they've done research on 5-year-old kids, and they found that about 97% of these 5-year-old kids were creative. They followed the same 5-year-old kids until they were 15 years old. Guess what percentage was creative at the age of 15? Less than 20. So what happens to us between the ages of 5 and 15? What takes our comfort zone and makes it smaller? Surrounding. What else? Think about it. There's one thing that makes us less creative. Cozial bounds? Wow, Constantine, that's a sophisticated little expression you came up with there. Think about it. What is it that makes us less creative? School. Very good, Elias. Education. Education is the best way to become a nerd. Yeah, we stop dreaming. See, we're not looking for certainty as a little kid. We're very comfortable with uncertainty. We love it. But isn't this ironic? The world is more and more uncertain, but we are being trained in school for a predictable world. Now, how do you become comfortable with uncertainty? You got to get out of your comfort zone. Every time you get out of your comfort zone, you become more comfortable with uncertainty. You got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable in order to become comfortable with uncertainty. So, where should you be professionally? Should you be comfortable with uncertainty professionally? Of course you should, because the world is more and more uncertain professionally. So you should be more uncomfortable with uncertainty. Now, where should you be at a personal level? The reality is it doesn't matter. Let me give you an example. I did my bachelor's in mathematics. I did my master's work in computer science. I was a nerd professionally. That's why I studied that. But I was also a nerd in my personal life. I had my first girlfriend at the age of 17, and she always complained to me that I was always so predictable. And at one point, she said to me, you know, Paris, I've had it. I've got girlfriends, they have boyfriends that give them, excitement. They, cheat on them, they hit them. You're like a straight line. You're so predictable. She left me. She said I was too predictable. I said, well, give me an example of being predictable. And she said, well, like, for example, when I tell you to call me at 8 o'clock, what time do you call me? I said, 8 o'clock. She said, that's it. That's right. You always call me at 8 o'clock. Don't you realize if you called me at 8:15, those 15 minutes for a woman, they're beautiful. The anxiety of not knowing, will he call, won't he call? That's the passion of life. But you're boring. You're so predictable. You're a nerd. She left me. So I tell you this because it's true. If you're a nerd in your professional life, you're probably a nerd in your personal life. And you've always probably thought that the two were connected. You're an introvert at home, you're an introvert at work. Well, let me tell you, those 5 years of my PhD and the work I've done subsequently with another couple of partners, we have realized, and this is our theory, we have proven that the two are not connected. But we make an excuse. We let our personality condition our possibilities professionally. So why am I telling you all this? Because you should not let your introvertedness or your nerdiness in your personal life be an excuse to how you can develop yourself professionally. And the reality is that if you are a nerd in your personal life, it's probably a good thing. Look at all the successful cases of entrepreneurs today, the best ones that you can think of. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, all these guys, successful entrepreneurs. Are they nerds in their personal life? Totally. So the answer to this question is it doesn't matter. If you are happy, you stay the way you are. Because let me tell you, most of the world is not happy. So if you're happy being a nerd in your personal life, stay that way. Now, this is our research. I want you to take a look at this chart. When I was in Boston growing up, I was a P1W1. I was a nerd in my personal life, and I was a nerd in my professional life. When I went to New York and I became a banker, I became a P1W3, and then I became a P1W4. I loved uncertainty in my work life, but I was still a nerd in my personal life. Today I'm 56 years old, so I've grown a little bit. I'm a P2W4. I love uncertainty in my professional life. I see opportunity everywhere with uncertainty. What does an entrepreneur see in uncertainty? Opportunity. So today I'm a P2W4. I still don't like uncertainty in my personal life, not as much as I did before, but I still don't like it. I'm still fairly nerdy. So think about you guys. Where are you on this chart? Let me tell you some of the results of our study. We analyzed over 5,000 people, and we found that 80% of the people who were W3 and W4, entrepreneurial thinkers, innovators, guess where 80% of them were on the P scale? Take a guess. Exactly, Valentina Logi and Oleg. They were P1, P2s. Amazing. But it's true. I mean, look at Steve Jobs. What was Steve Jobs on this scale? P1W4. He was totally inspirational at work. He could inspire millions. An enormous amount of emotional intelligence. And at home, zero emotional intelligence. Total P1, probably a P0. So this is important, people. I want you to think about where you are on this chart because you see, this in a way is your roadmap. This is in a way what I'm saying. The reason I'm bringing this up with all that disruptive stuff that we talked about earlier is that if you want to be a disruptor, if you want to be able to be a technology leader today, you are going to have to know more than technology. It's not like in the past where you could just be an engineer. Now you're going to have to learn how to disrupt. And it's about experiences and outcomes more than products and services. So you are going to have to be a W3 or W4 more than ever before. On the P scale, Constantine, a P4 is a person that loves uncertainty in their personal life. So it could be a party animal, it could be someone totally out there. It could also be someone traditional, but who loves uncertainty. Let me give you an example. There was a woman in Australia. She adopted two little kids with no arms and no legs. She's a P4. I could never deal with the uncertainty of raising two kids with no arms and no legs. Now, the reality is that most of the world are introverts, P1, P2s. There are a lot of people that are extroverts in their personal life, but the majority of us aren't. Now, why do you think that people who are P1, P2s are W3s and W4s and vice versa? What do most people look for in their life? Tell me, what do most people look for in their life? Happiness, balance, balance. That's it. Lisa, Constantine, good. Yes, equilibrium. That's right. People look for a balance in their lives, you know? And that's why you get this situation. I've already told you this. And actually, they found happiness. They found that people were happier when they were W3s and W4s. This was in Japan last time I came here about a year ago. These five people showed up after my talk. Look at the guy on the left here. And they said they were P1s. I looked at that guy on the left, quants, P1s, and I said, he looks like a P0, doesn't he? And he said to me, Professor, um, yeah, I am, Eldon. He said, Professor, I'm a P1, but I'm a W3, he said to me. I'm an entrepreneur. I got 22 people working for me, but I'm a P1, My girlfriend and I, we like to stay home, watch TV. We're not very sociable. Do I need to change? I said, are you happy as a P1, as a nerd? He said, yeah, I'm happy. So why should you change? Most of the world is not happy. The next time somebody tells you you should change, ask them if they're happy. We're being told every day by the media, by Hollywood, by everybody, we should be more extroverted in our personal lives. Why? Is it going to make us happier? No, I doubt it. Listen, if you're happy, you stay the way you are. And actually, the good thing about this is the greatest thing about this. If you're happy, stay the way you are. And if you happen to be a nerd or an introvert, the chances are that you have a better chance of becoming a successful innovator or entrepreneur. So it's the best of both worlds. So now you, the technology leader, where are you on this chart? Think about it, people. Now here's an interesting chart for the comfort zone, because at the end of the day, it's all about you and others, and it's about doing and thinking. So when you're looking at your chart, you want to know, how do you improve yourself? How do you understand yourself better? How do you improve others? And how you can understand other people? You see, by knowing if you have an employee and he tells you, I'm a P1 W2, and you're his boss, then what do you know about this person? Well, automatically right away, you know that this person needs training so they can become a W3. Okay, they're a little bit nerdy at work, not too nerdy, just a little bit, but they're a little bit still nerdy. So you need to get them to open up more at work. You can teach that stuff. That's the beauty of this. But they're a P1, so don't take them to some crazy party. Don't take them like out of their comfort zone at a personal level, because you're going to disrupt them a bit, and they're probably not going to be happy about that. Respect the fact that they're a P1 if they're happy, but just develop their professional side. So this tells you a lot about a person when you know what they are. I do a lot of work now at big companies. I'm exactly doing that. I'm here in Japan this week. That's why, you see me, I'm a little bit tired because jet lag, kills me when I get here. I arrived yesterday, and for the next couple of days, I'm going to be shot because I'll be getting up, sleeping a couple hours a day only. But I'm here in Japan to teach in big companies exactly this, how to get out of your comfort zone. I'm teaching people how to become W3s and W4s while staying where they are in their P1, P2s, because in the Japanese culture, you've got a lot of P1, P2s. These people don't want to change. You know how difficult it is to teach someone to go from P1 to P4? It could take them years. And maybe you don't want to do that because maybe they're happy the way they are. Why should you? But you need to teach them to become W3s and W4s. And Japan is full of P1, W1s. And they need to change. They need to innovate. So we need to take them from W1 to W3, W4. In your part of the world, those of you that are in the Eurasia, similar problem. Not as bad as in Japan, but you've got a lot of P1s, P2s, and you've got a lot of W1s, W2s. And the idea here is how do we get you, to get out there and become W3, W4s? Here's something else that's very useful to do about yourself. What are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities? This I like to describe, sometimes you have this little voice that's talking to you all the time. And one of the radio stations that you're always listening to is called You Loser Radio. It's like always giving you negative talk. Have you had that situation where you've got this radio sometimes, telling you no, you can't do that. Yeah, forget that. It's too difficult. That's called the You Loser radio station. You have to stop listening to that station. Then you have like You Champion of the Universe, where it's too positive. It's telling you that you can, do anything you want. And that's probably another station that, it's good, but you don't want to be there all the time. And then you've got You Rock Radio. That's the best station. That's the one that's, telling you these are your strengths, this is what makes you special, and, what it's inhibiting you now and how to bring out your best strengths. So you got to get out of the mode of listening to You Loser Radio and, always tune in to You Rock Radio, which is the one that makes you feel good. Think about the decisions you make every day. What's holding you back? What's pulling you? Sometimes, you want to be a leader in your organizations, but something's stopping you from being a leader in your organization. So you have to assert yourself, adopt a systems thinking, create a team, start where you are, surround yourself by good people, know your audience, and rehearse your story. There has to be a story about you. That's what sells you as a person. People believe stories. That's what gives them faith about people. And then I want you to reflect on some questions, because many times the way we are is based on some of the beliefs that we have and some of the ones that we have to leave behind, some of the anchors for the future. How do you want to change in your work? How are you intentional about learning? Are you reflective or introspective? What lessons have you learned in the past about leading change? Tell to win is an important one. You have to learn to tell stories. No problem, Elias. Thanks for being here. This will be recorded, so you can watch it next time. So you got to tell a story. You got to have skin in the game. I mean, look at me right now. I'm here because Dana Shaddad, asked me. She said, "I need you to do this for me." But as you can imagine, I've slept 2 hours over the last 2 nights. It's the last thing I need in the world is to be up here, talking to you guys. But I enjoy this. I love uncertainty of dealing with 44 of you out there today and building relationships with hopefully with people like yourselves. The uncertainty for me is an opportunity to learn new things, to share things with you guys. So there's a story I tell about, how I, engage with you. And every one of you has to be able to tell that story. That's how you're going to engage with people. You have to see yourself as a bicycle. If you're nerdy, you've got power. You've got the math, the sciences. This is the wheel. It's, your technology skills. Here you are, you're a potential technology leader. You've got all these technology, all this strength, as mathematics, whatever, critical thinking. That's your wheel. But unless you can learn the storytelling, the communication, the leadership, the initiative, you got nowhere to go. Unless you can steer this powerful bicycle, you have nowhere to go. Now, if you can combine these two things, the nerdy, the P1, the be technical, the way you are as a person, because you've started as a W1. You can then become a W3, a W4. You can steer. There's nothing that can stop you because you'll have the back wheel and the front wheel. How do you spend your time thinking about, do you think about the past half the time, the future, the now? You got to be thinking about the future and the now. You have to look at yourself and say, what is your personal performance scale? What's pushing you? The things you want to do, have to do, or able to do. This is what is going to guide you in terms of your, professional life. You have to be looking for signals out there. What are the things that are giving you signals in terms of the things that you can do? And you're looking at your professional comfort zone. Are you being constructive, negative, positive, or destructive? You can look at this in your own time sometime. Then the team is critical here. Where I am here, trust who you are, what are you doing, how will you do it. Team is definitely an important thing here because without a team, you really can't do things in a company. So that's where I want to wrap up, and I'll take some questions. But before you give me questions, I want you to look at a couple of things. This is my Twitter. If you use Twitter, please tweet right now what you thought of this presentation. That's my Twitter account because it'd be good to show people where we are and what we're doing, how alive we are here at the Eurasia Mobile Challenge. So that's my Twitter handle. This is my email in case you need some personal advice or you want to, touch base sometime. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Paris.
And finally,
Thank you.
I have a LinkedIn account that you might want to look at my group, Accidental Quants. That's where we follow this research. All right, good. Let's go.
So thank you
You got
again,
some
Dr.
questions
Paris.
there?
Do we have any do we have any quick question we would like to ask Dr. Paris?
Yeah, I think we have one here. Any books to read on how to move from W2 to W4? Very good question. Yes, there's a book to read. It'll be coming out early next year. I'm writing it with the other couple of researchers that are working on this. And it's going to be called Uncertainty Equals Opportunity. So if you connect on the LinkedIn group Accidental Quants, you will know when the book comes out. But we'll be telling all our members of all the different competitions as well.
All right.
Any other questions?
Anyone else? If you would like to write it in Russian, please feel free to type it in Russian and we'll get it translated for Dr. Paris.
Well, thank you everybody for liking the lecture. I appreciate that. Um, any other points here? I think somebody said that they had a question.
Well, okay. Anastasia, can you help please
Yes,
with the
Ozan.
translation? And
All right,
Ozan.
Ozan had a question here.
While you answer
Ozan,
Ozan,
no.
Anastasia will.
Okay, if you're a P3, P4, Ozan, no, there's no problem with that. It's good, if you're happy being a P3, P4, then you should stay there. You're not at a disadvantage. Let's see, as we said earlier, for most people, they need a balance in their lives. But maybe you're a person that doesn't need a balance in their life. It's true that, probably about 10% of the population are P4s only. There's not a lot of them. But maybe um, the reality is that you're happy with uncertainty both in your personal and your professional life. Now, what could happen to you, Ozan, is that I don't know how old you are, whether you have a wife and children, but the reality is that many times, you get married, you have 3 kids, and you used to be a P4, and now you become a P2. Yes, Ozan, I can see that. You're 19 years old. So you're a P3, P4. Don't worry. Once you get married, have three kids, and get a mortgage, you might become a P2 again. So don't worry about that. I think at the age of 19, you're probably good being a P4. LinkedIn, go on LinkedIn and join the group Accidental Quants, and you will hear about when the book
Okay.
comes out.
Anastasia, can you help with a couple of questions that came up? Okay, Tanya, can you help until Anastasia joins us with her voice? Can you help us with the translation, Tanya?
For sure. So Oleg is asking why Uber, such companies like Uber and Airbnb, also members of 90%.
Yes, because they both copied or used business models that already existed and adapted them to their industry or to their solution. So their business models were not totally original.
Доктор Перрис говорит, что их бизнес-модель не совсем полностью оригинальная, то есть они взяли бизнес-модель, которые уже существовали, и их применили к своим рынкам. То есть это не совсем инновация. Oleg is asking, what's your thoughts on innovations in online education?
I think that there's quite a bit of innovation now in online education, but I don't think anything is disrupting it really yet. Because still today, we are, traditional education has a lot of power because of the degrees that they have. And companies are still demanding those degrees. So traditional education has not been disrupted yet, but I believe it will be in the future.
Dr. Paris, I will not translate to Russian because Oleg is saying here that he understands all, just so you know. Any other questions, guys?
The new breakdown, Konstantin, what do you mean? If you're a small startup, obviously it's difficult to generate your own big data, but you can try to buy data, or you can try to partner with people that have data on customers on people who are your target customers. So my advice is that you either start to buy data, or you start to partner with people who have as customers the same people you want to target. Elder.
Tanya, we have some question in Russian.
Before you tell me that, Konstantin, in terms of the new breakdown, something that will change the world, I think that one of the biggest things that could change the world is medicine. If we really are able to crack that and live substantially longer. I think the other things are important, but I don't see them changing the world anytime soon. But I'm not an expert at this, Constantine. I'm just I just have analyzed a lot, disruption, but it's hard to tell what is going to actually disrupt things to change the world. I mean, we're going through a disruption right now, for example, in the automobile sector. You can see clearly that in the next 20 years, cars will drive by themselves. Probably people won't own cars. All kinds of things. The traditional car companies will disappear. I think banking is also going to disappear. The traditional consumer banking that we know as we know it, because people are targeting those customers. Anybody that has a relationship with a customer, if I have a relationship with you and I'm selling you today Airbnb rooms, I can sell to you tomorrow, or Uber. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to sell you everything. Because once you have a relationship with somebody, you can sell them anything you want. That's the big thing today. That's why relationships are so important.
So the Russian question, Oleg is asking, what do you think neural network will be relevant in online education?
Neural networks, yes, that's something really, really big. And I think that's coming, but I don't know when it'll be here. Okay. All right. Do we have a last question? I need to run here.
Anastasia, do we have one more question in Russian written, or are we?
No. Actually, it's just a feedback, so no Russian questions.
Dr. Paris, thank you again for an amazing session. This session is recorded. We'll be sharing with everyone the video recording, so you could use that for future reference as well. And please keep in touch with Dr. Paris, as he mentioned earlier, with his Twitter, LinkedIn account that you can reach out and update him also on all the studies that have been taken care of. Any last comments or words, Dr. Paris, before we sign off?
Yes, I've really enjoyed speaking to all of you today. And again, please connect with me on LinkedIn and please tweet. Eldar, thanks for the tweet already. I saw that. Let's show everybody that we're alive and kicking here in the Eurasia Mobile Challenge. And I want to thank again Dana and Mark for making this happen today.
You again, and please stay tuned for an email that we'll send where you could watch the video again. And our next session will take place this coming Thursday. It'll be in Russian. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.